ke motsotso wa hao ntate. Yohle.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Honourable Deputy Speaker, how is it possible that only 68% of the department's targets were achieved, yet 98.9% of the budget was spent for the financial year under review? This must imply that the DTIC have picked up on the habits of their errant sister departments who have mastered the art of fiscal dumping over a number of years. While it is convenient for members of the governing party to lay blame for this poor performance squarely at the door of the coronavirus, we know this is not the truth. Rather, it is as a result of Minister Patel's...
Honourable members on the visual platform, please look at your system there, switch off the mic, because otherwise it creates a problem for us in the House. Please, and for other members as well on the visual. Just switch off your mic. Go ahead, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Rather, it is as a result of Minister Patel's steadfast commitment to his ideology and his inability to command respect from his own team. Certain elements of the commentariat try to portray him as a technocratic reformer, but I am yet to see evidence of this. Let's set out the facts. During the lockdown crisis, he was the mastermind of several job-killing regulations that prioritize state power over people power. Deputy Speaker, he has targeted the scrap metal industry by imposing feed on an already beleaguered industry. However, his cardinal sin has been his inability to deal with the rogue leadership at the National Lotteries Commission. Not only has he misled Parliament about the way in which COVID-19 relief funds were dispersed, he has allowed the NLC to violate the constitution of our country. He has failed to fire the board and place the entity under administration, all while the looting has continued unabated. Deputy Speaker, it is clear that you, Minister Patel, lack both the spinal and testicular fortitude to do what is right. I thank you.
EFF.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Go ahead, Honourable Member.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, we want to say from the onset that the EFF rejects this budget review and recommendation report by the Portfolio Committee of Trade and Industry and Economics. The committee has failed to appreciate and expose the fact that there is no relationship between what the Minister has consistently said about South Africa's industrial policy and what is happening on the ground. The Department of Trade and Industry and Economic Development is supposed to be at the center of job creation and economic growth in this country, but has simply forgotten its mandate and that of its entities. And the blaming of the COVID-19 pandemic simply does not cut it. The Minister keeps saying that there are industrial activities in South Africa. There are master plans, there are industrial activities that only exist in his imagination. The reality on the ground does not support what the Minister is saying. The same way he imagined the manufacturing of 20,000 ventilators, that he cannot tell us where they were manufactured, when and where they were tested, and which health facility received the 20,000 ventilators. These ventilators only exist in the Minister's imagination because he has simply ignored EFF's call for a state-owned company that would distribute and manufacture products the state can manage. South Africa continues to export the majority of its finished products while manufacturing continues to collapse. Between July 2019 and July 2020, manufacturing has lost more than 3,000 jobs, the second largest job losses after construction, jobs which we will not get back. According to Stats SA, manufacturing has shrank by 74.9%, something that has long been happening before COVID-19. Instead, the Minister is obsessed with getting his friends to be the chair of the National Lotteries Commission, appointed panels without legal basis, and we know that this is motivated by the intent to influence awarding of the lottery license and rights. Instead of focusing on building industrial capacity, create jobs through the manufacturing of supplies, actual ventilators.
Honorable member, your time has expired. I want you.
Thank you, Deputy.
And this is not personal. It's 2 minutes. Check your watch, please. IFP. IFP.
Deputy Speaker, it is Prof. Simang.
Go ahead, Ned. Is he on?
Okay, I think I'm going to... I see he's online, but can I go ahead to save you time,
Yes.
Chairperson?
Go ahead.
Deputy Speaker?
Go ahead, Honorable C.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. In 2019, President Ramaphosa announced a reconfiguration of government to promote coherence, better coordination, and improve efficiency. He emphasized the need for a clear focus on the productive sectors of the economy, which included economic transformation and job creation. In 2020, the unprecedented occurred with the worldwide outbreak of COVID-19 and the subsequent hard lockdown of many sectors of the economy, the economic ramifications of which will still be felt for years to come. Budgetary reprioritizations became necessary and were implemented, and the improvement of alignment between economic policies, plans of the state, its agencies, government's political and economic objectives and mandates peremptory. Deputy Speaker, extraordinary times require extraordinary economic strategies. The department must be considering all options to keep trade and industry in South Africa not only alive but also thriving. Job drivers, as we continue to implement the new growth path, must be a key focus, as well as the promotion of exports and the bolstering of foreign investment. Deputy Speaker, the economic crisis and hardships facing millions of South Africans as this tumultuous year draws to a close have all but crippled our already struggling pre-pandemic economy. Clean audits received by the DTI and most of its entities are encouraging and must be commended. The department also responded quickly and put plans and protocols in place to mitigate the negative impacts of hard lockdown as a result of COVID-19. The IFP supports the BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. FF Plus.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition is a key department and key player as far as growth of the South African economy is concerned. The sixth administration of Parliament is most probably the most critical administration since 1994. It is indeed a make or break term. The economic growth of South Africa is low and foreign investment confidence is at a disturbing low level. The department has already failed to achieve its strategic objectives prior to COVID-19, and we will now, with even a further decreased budget and weak economy, have to take a drastic step away from its socialist policies towards the creation of a competitive and sustainable market-related economy. The current economic crisis facing the country was not as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but was caused by poor governance, state capture and corruption, and further exacerbated by government's response to the crisis with lockdown regulations of irrational nature. In the near future, a story will be told that affirmative action will be necessary to address poverty and the redress of injustices that all South Africans, black and white, incurred under 3 decades of ANC rule, and this time without the exclusion of anyone. To award contracts of billions of rand to people who cannot deliver because they have political connections is not empowerment, but nothing else than economic sabotage and theft. Time has told us that the intended inclusive economic growth, transformation and job creation under the ANC government resulted in poor governance, corruption, state capture and failed BBB quotas. Quotas is in concept an extraordinary privilege that comes at a premium that weakens the South African economy and cannot afford it anymore. Time will tell us which route was taken, and the story will be told someday in the near future. The Freedom Front Plus cannot support this report. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. On the dot. Thank you very much. ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As we consider the report of the DTIC, the ACGP is all too aware of the critical role that DTI has had to play in growing our economy. This is because of the precarious position our economy actually finds itself in, with debt spiraling out of control at 80% of GDP, our budget deficit growing, unemployment at over 52%, our Gini coefficient one of the highest, if not the highest in the world, as reflected by our huge inequality and poverty levels. With that being said, the ACDP welcomes the clean audit obtained by both the DTI and economic development. However, there are those amongst us who understand that a clean audit does not necessarily mean that all is well in the department. The National Lotteries Commission is one of the entities that we all ought to be concerned about. We've had a flawed process in the shortlisting of the chairman of the board, and the NLC is plagued with allegations of corruption and nepotism, with ongoing investigations into these allegations as we speak. Of great concern to the ACDP is the shortcomings of targets achieved for the DTI. Only 17 of 25 or 68% of the targets were achieved. Surprisingly, with 32% of the targets not met, 98.9% of the budget was spent for the financial year. If there's a program that must be singled out for poor performance, it is Program 4, which has the goal of driving industrial development. This program achieved a dismal 33%, with only one of the 3 targets achieved. Additionally, the ITC was recently downgraded by Moody's from a BA1 to Baa3 in the long-term foreign currency ratings. Clearly, all is not well in the IDC. While the ACDP welcomes the progress made in the development of master plans and the ease of doing business and a focus on the export capacities of our SEZs, we cannot accept this report. We will, however, continue to champion the cause of beneficiation, localization as low-hanging fruit capable of bringing much-needed employment to South Africa. I thank you.
Your time has expired. Please time yourself better than that. You know you can do that. UDM, this is your decision, by the way, political parties. I'm enforcing it. That's all I will do. UDM? ATM? Good? Good? Are you connecting, honorable member, from Good? NFP?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity. The National Freedom Party supports the BRR report of the Department of Trade and Industry tabled here today. Allow me first of all to welcome the unqualified or clean audit that the department achieved. Having said that, Deputy Speaker, the National Freedom Party would like to state the following. At least 4 years ago, the National Freedom Party on Oversight visit highlighted some of the challenges that the contractors, particularly in the water and sanitation sector, were having as a result of not having the financial muscle or resources. As such, we found that many of these contracts were at a standstill and suggested to the Department of Trade and Industry to create an industry in a public-private setup so that it would boost the economy, create jobs in South Africa, but also will be able to manufacture for local consumption and for export. And we are disappointed that the Department of Trade and Industry have not even considered this today. We're calling on the Department of Trade and Industry in order to boost the economy, which is already suffering as a result of COVID-19 and also prior to COVID-19, to try and boost the capacity of local manufacturing in South Africa. And one of the ways in doing that is this, that we need to be more restrictive in terms of the imports into South Africa. And we know that some of the challenges we're facing, particularly with under-invoicing and the cheap imports that are coming to South Africa, which has brought the textile, leather, plastic industry to a standstill. Okay. Added to that is the capacity in South Africa, which we have to be able to enhance the automotive industry in South Africa as well. So we're calling on the department to play a more pivotal role in creating a more conducive environment for businesses in South Africa to thrive. The National Freedom Party supports the report table here.
Thank you, Honourable Member. AIC?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Having gone through this report, we could see that something has been done now to contribute to the growth of the economy. No stone has been left unturned to contribute to the growth of the economy, though it was very much difficult time during this COVID-19 and lockdown. We also appreciate now the unqualified report received by this department. Therefore, as AIC now, we do support the report on Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cope. Even online. All right. Al-Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, Al-Jamaa supports the budget review, and we wish the department all the success. However, we would like to ask the department to remove the gatekeepers that prevent ambassadors from many countries from accessing the minister and coming forward with trade promotion. I've been struggling for months to get the minister to meet the ambassador of Pakistan, for example. He has now left and there's a new one, but he had some good proposals to improve trade, and this department seems to be unfriendly towards countries that wants to open the doors for trade. So this is the only criticism I have of the department. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. ANC. Honorable Hanif, please switch off your mic. ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We rise in this House on behalf of the ANC to support the budget review recommendation report of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. The Portfolio Committee has considered the annual performances of the Departments of Trade and Industry as well as the Economic Development Department. At the outset, we commend the seamless manner in which the two departments have emerged as part of the reconfiguration of the state. Also, an acknowledgement that inevitably the COVID-19 pandemic have impacted on the policy priorities of the two departments. In the previous year, we recommended to the departments to the need for a developmental implementation of the master plans within the context of the reimagined industrial strategy. The department has since developed the poultry, retail clothing, textile warehouse, and leather industry master plans. The department is in the process of finalizing the sugar, steel, and furniture master plans. We commend the DTI achieving unqualified audit, a clean audit. The department must support the SABS and the NRCS on their audit findings. We also commend EDD for the achievement of unqualified audit with no findings. Again, we commend the EDD through the Competition Commission for undertaking data market inquiry, which outcome has led to the industry committed to the reducing of the data costs.
Thank you
the
very
Competition
much.
Commission also conducted the grocery retail market industry, which ended the inclusive lease.
Honorable Ngosi.
Thank you very much.
Siphelele isikhathi baba. Imbili kuphela.
Siyabonga. African National Congress supports the budget review recommendations. Siyabonga kakhulu, Party Staff.
Order, honorable member, order. Siphelele isikhathi. Honorable member, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Deputy Speaker,
Yes.
can you please note the objection?
Of the
Can you please note the objection of the EFF?
Okay, we'll do that.
Deputy Speaker, could you also note the objection of the DA, please?
We'll do that.
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the FF+.
I will do that. Honorable members, those objections noted, the report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Small Business Development.
Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go through the declarations. I see the DA on my list.
Ngiyabonga Sekela Somlomo. The key problems that continue to hinder the performance of this portfolio are undercapacity of staff, as well as caliber of those staff in some instances, and corruption or maladministration, rooted in chronic vacancies which are waiting for DPSA finalization of the structure of the departments. Thankfully, these issues were picked up by the Auditor General's forensic audits. In addition, we must highlight our dissatisfaction with the Minister often not being able to appear before the committee, which is understandable to a degree due to competing demands, and the Deputy Minister does fill in where possible. As the DA, we would like to see a small business development department and related entities that work smartly and strategically to maximize on its assets and strengths to facilitate and leverage public-private partnerships that unlock microfinancing to support new and emerging small and micro enterprises that boost production, enable self-reliant livelihoods, and get the economy pumping again, because they in themselves do not have the resources and means to meet the scope and complexity of demand for such microfinancing. Our country's post-lockdown revival has to start at the grassroots, providing space and opportunities for individuals and households to look after themselves. The slogans going forward must be a micro enterprise or job in every household and financial assistance for every deserving small enterprise. Finally, we must reiterate our condemnation of the attacks on immigrant-owned spaza shops and other micro retailers by the MK Military Vet Association over the recent weeks, which essentially amounts to economic terrorism. The violence and intimidation we have seen perpetrated are dealing a major blow to the microeconomy at a time when it needs to afford it.
Exceeded your time. I can't allow you to proceed in spite of your good idea. EFF.
I thank you.
Siphelele isikhathi suzama ungena ngeback door. EFF.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The EFF rejects the budget review and recommendation report by the Portfolio Committee of Small Business. The report shows that the ruling party does not understand the role of small business. COVID-19 has shown all of us that this department is useless. Young people with startups, women in informal economy, people living with disabilities who are part of the broader small businesses network were left on their own. Lockdown was imposed without a credible and a practical plan to assist millions in small businesses and the informal economy. The reality is that our people in small businesses and cooperatives enter the economy as the last resort, last buffer between them and poverty. And sometimes the difference between next meal and empty stomach. The COVID-19 relief was a scam. It only existed in paper and the minister's imaginations. This was made worse by the fact that people needed to apply online for assistance. The cost of data is too high. Our people do not complex smartphones, and as a result, many of them who needed help could not even apply. But the biggest challenge is the fact that currently, as we speak, there is no real connection between industrial policy and small business. This is why we have argued in the past that there is no need for the department to exist as a standard and as a standalone department. It must be moved back to the Department of Trade and Industry and Small Business Development.
Your time has expired. IFP. IFP.
All right, I see.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. In considering...
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. In considering these reports, we are tasked with the responsibility to efficient and effective functioning of the department. We as the IFP support the use of sensitive and simulatory civil of business to significantly increase the quality of share of the domestic and international goods and services markets. Availability of capital for small businesses and medium-sized enterprises is crucial. To achieve these goals, the skewedness in the distribution of funds and resources in the favor of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal is therefore a grave concern. Previous provinces such as the Northern Cape and Northwest deserve urgent attention from the department. We have noted the bilateral and inequalities that exist between provinces. The policies of the department cannot further sustain inequalities.
Thank you,
However, honorable members, for the department and
honorable member Siphelele Sikhathi, FF plus.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, small businesses should be at the core of economic growth and job creation. But there is no need for a Department of Small Business Development, as the problems which are facing small businesses and are killing small businesses in South Africa are poor service delivery, the collapse of infrastructure, unnecessary red tape, and the fact that there are restrictive legislation. This needs to be addressed. There's no need for a Department of Small Business Development, because what is currently happening is that government departments and levels of government are operating in silos, and that should be addressed to actually save our small business sector, and by so doing create jobs and save the economy. This department is doing the opposite. It is spending too much money on administration and salaries. It is not actually achieving its goals, and it is actually killing small businesses. I thank you.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Deputy Chair, the ACDP shares concerns that have been expressed in the report and by many. Some of the issues that have been raised in the report is an area of underperformance that was and remains the filling of vacant positions. Now, Chairperson, it is inexplicable that the absence of a permanent Director General still is a severe constraint facing this department. Surely, the filling of the post of the accounting officer is critical and should be expedited, and the Portfolio Committee did point out that this must be done before the end of the financial year. And other senior posts, such as Deputy Director General, Chief Directors, are also not filled, and this obviously impacts on the mandate of the department. One of the most glaring weaknesses is the absence of post-funding visits across schemes, and this again is pointed out in this report, and the Auditor General has remarked on this as well. Again, the last issue the ACDP would like to raise is that the department has been without an audit committee, and this is a substantial constraint, again, in complying with audit requirements. For these reasons, the ACDP will not support this report. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. UDM? ATM? Good? NFP?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party supports the BRR report of Portfolio Committee on Small Business Development tabled here today. Now, Deputy Speaker, allow me to highlight some of the concerns the National Freedom Party has. One, of course, being the loans, the guarantees that have been given to the banks. As a result of a lot of red tape, you would find that most of this money has not yet be given to the small businesses, and that appears to be a serious problem. But very importantly, we want to welcome the initiative by the Department of Small Business Development together with Netbank to empower 40,000 informal fruit and vegetable traders with, I think, 1,000 rand each to buy stock. However, I think what we need to be mindful, and maybe the department needs to have some kind of substructure or subcommittee dealing with ensuring that you empower, including management skills and financial skills, to these small businesses, because you know many of these people are people that may have lost their jobs and do not have the necessary skills to run businesses. And it's different than working for somebody and running their own business. And I think the department needs to put in some initiatives so that they can provide some kind of skills, financial management and things to these small businesses until they are able to succeed on their own. The other problem I think we tend to have is just that big businesses still seem to have the cream of the crop, and small businesses very often tend to find themselves marginalized if they are in the same sector. And I'll give you a good example. If you find somebody in the printing sector, you'll find more people want to do business with the big businesses. And that's why we think the department should come in here and make sure there is some kind of interaction between big business and small businesses, so that they could actually adopt them, in fact, and so that they too can flourish and become big business. The National Freedom Party will support the report that is tabled here today. Thank you.
Thank you. AIC.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As African Independent Congress, how we wish that this department goes down to the women in the rural areas and in informal businesses. It should also encourage now the municipalities now through LLD to train these women so that they can in a position to run their businesses. We think that now contribution can be made by these small businesses, and our women now can also be involved in running businesses. Jobs can be created. So we therefore support this report as African Independent Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Ko Al-Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Al-Jamaa supports the report. You know, Deputy Speaker, in his State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa spoke about 1,000 products that will be localized for those people at the bottom of the economy scale. The Minister has done very well in making this a reality, and already there are 100 of these 1,000 products that has been identified, that has been given shelf space in the major supermarkets, that has been listed with retailers. And this will most probably be one of the most successful achievements of the 6th Parliament. So we'd like to compliment the Minister and the Chair of the Portfolio Committee. When it comes to the actual budget, the Small Business Development Department is still the Cinderella, and we need more funding, but we understand that in the years to come, the budget will be doubled, and we look forward to it because so many people will benefit and will be able to create jobs. And the Small Business Development Department should be strengthened, and this country needs such a department. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Having considered the annual report of the Department and its agencies on their finance and non-financial performance, the African National Congress supports this BRRR of this portfolio. The Department achieved an unqualified audit opinion with findings, and we urge the Department to act on these findings. We also commend CEDA and CIFO for having achieved a clean audit. This illustrates sound financial management in these entities. Although room for improvement, they must continue their good performance. Many small businesses have been severely affected by lockdown. Although not enough, many SMMEs have benefited from the initiatives of the Department, such as the Debt Relief Finance Scheme, the SPAZA support, shop support program, and others. We welcome the AG's findings that no irregularities or financial mismanagement on these initiatives in the real-time audit of the COVID-19 procurement report. In line with our growing priorities, the ANC is focusing on inclusive economic growth, and this department has initiated negotiations with wholesalers to ensure local products is on our supermarkets and in our shops. We commend the Cabinet finalization of the localization policy framework, which aims at deepening the industrial base and indeed support local East Lekker, with certain set-asides and also increased focus on beneficiation. We reiterated the recommendations that the Department should finalize the National Small Business Amendment Bill, finalize its organizational structure, and also we asked CIFA to consider insourcing wholesaling lending facilities. Lastly, we recommend...
Honourable Member, watch your left. It's red.
The ANC supports this.
Absolutely. Honourable Member, thank you very much. Honourable Members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Deputy Speaker, can you please note the objection of the EFF?
We will. EFF.
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the EFF+.
EFF plus.
And the ACDP, thank you.
ACDP.
And the DA, please.
And the DA, okay. Those objections noted, the report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs.
Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I hereby move that this report be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. That being said, we now go to those who will do the declarations. The DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thousands of South Africans are denied their freedom, denied fairness, and denied opportunity every day by an ANC-ruled Home Affairs the Constitutional Court has slammed as brazenly incompetent and indifferent. Sindiziwe Shonge has been waiting since March 2018 for a passport renewal. Leandri Peach of Bloemfontein had to go to court to get her daughter's ID to enroll in university. 18-year-old Simpiwe Kalipa of Tsanin has his life on hold waiting for a birth certificate as somebody is on leave. It has been left to the Democratic Alliance to be the voice of the people, provide a sympathetic ear and a competent ally. 22 of the 34 issues from the 2019 BRRR remain unresolved, and a number of these were also on the 2018 report. This includes the investigations into the AG report on employees doing business while employed by Home Affairs. Genuine Home Affairs documents are now available from a growing list of service providers in just 3 days for an extra fee, while at Home Affairs it takes 12 to 18 months. Employees look for their example to the CEO of the government printing works who allegedly runs a business on the side. People feel cheated when they see this, when they see the Bushiris waltz in and out of South Africa through business on the side. Home Affairs shows no real desire to fix their own faults in the CETA issue, which allegedly causes Home Affairs systems to be offline, leaving our compatriots stranded. Instead, every conversation to resolve this ends with the minister calling on the service to be directly procured by Home Affairs. You see, it's not about the people, it's about the tender. The Democratic Alliance welcomes the procurement of new voter registration devices, and next time these citizens queue to vote, they will remember how they were turned away, cheated, treated like naughty children, and vote for change. The Democratic Alliance rejects this report.
Thank you. EFF.
Deputy Speaker, the Economic has rejects the budget review and recommendation report of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. It is shocking, Deputy Speaker, that the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, has brought his incompetence from the Department of Health to now Home Affairs. There is no integration of IT systems across the Department of Home Affairs. Things done on manual are not transferred to electronic systems. There are too many vacant positions of frontline officers and some critical posts at a management level. Many of these positions are not even funded. Home Affairs continues to depend on CETA, Public Works and SARS without a clear memorandum of understanding or services level agreement. This has crippled Home Affairs in many ways. The department spent millions in unnecessary litigations because they do not have internal capacity. The minister has no way of ending this because he does not have the capacity even if he wanted to. Deputy Speaker, we have to talk about the IEC. While there is a bill before us that deals with substantive matters, we are concerned by the budget cuts made on the IEC budget. The IEC cannot hold sufficient political education for voters, something we think is a deliberate strategy to undermine our democracy. Too many people who should vote are not registered to vote, and the IEC is failing to get these people in the voters' roll. Lastly, we maintain that the artificial colonial borders that separate Africans, their goods and services, is the first obstacle we should solve to solve Africa's development. But this must happen through consultative processes with other African states, common currency, common language, and common education. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the Department of Home Affairs was asked to reprioritize its budget to give away 564 million towards another SAA bailout and our corruption-riddled COVID-19 response. This is like asking a dying man for his kidney. Home Affairs needs more resources, not less. The Great Bushiri escape has once again exposed the department in deep crisis. Right now, one immigration officer in South Africa is expected to do the work that thousands of officers do in London. No wonder border control is failing. No wonder criminal syndicates and human trafficking rings flourish. No wonder undocumented migrants and illegal migrants within our borders are multiplying. Then there's the Standing Committee for Refugees Affairs. It only has a handful of employees. Because of this, the current backlog in the asylum seeker system is going to take 68 years to finalize. No wonder then that some economic migrants are able to abuse the system to live, work, and use government services for years on end. It is a fact that this department lacks the resources and the political will to implement its own legislation. And what about services to the general public? Well, every South African dreads having to visit a Home Affairs office. Endless queues and perpetually failing ITC systems see South Africans having to take time away from their small businesses and their jobs while spending their last bit of money traveling back and forth to Home Affairs offices without any resolution. To make matters worse, corruption has also become endemic within this department. Far too many South Africans are still waiting on their passport renewals, their IDs, birth certificates, which puts their futures on hold. Honourable Chairperson, it is becoming increasingly difficult to continue supporting a budget of a department that doesn't have a plan to fix the grave challenges it faces. I thank you.
Thank you. FF Plus.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Freedom Front Plus welcomes the actions taken by the committee on holding the Minister and the department accountable, and we are awaiting reports on, amongst other investigations, in relation to the Auditor General provided list of persons with involvement in companies whilst in the employment of the department within 7 days after the adoption of this report. The report back on counter-corruption directorate investigations, as well as engaging the Hawks to investigate and address syndicates that operate outside and within the office. The resolving the matter of the system downtime by CETA with the Minister of Communications to address front office service delivery by the department and provide alternative solutions and related budget. Engage more urgently with the Ministers of Finance regarding the cutting of funding to the already constrained department, which is operating at less than half its ideal capacity, and the effective administration and legislative changes to facilitate laying criminal charges against foreign nationals who submit fraudulent documentation in the application of the permanent residence. I dink, Speaker, die departement se probleme is egter veel groter as net dit. Die komitee moet in werklikheid meer drasties ingryp omdat hierdie departement op die rand van 'n ineenstorting staan. Veral in soverre dit ondoeltreffende grensbeheer, onbillike agterstande met geboortesertifikate en reisdokumente betref, terwyl die departement ook meer as 2 miljard rand se skuldfondse teen hom het. Die VF+ kan daarom hierdie verslag nie steun nie. Dankie, Adjunct Speaker.
ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP has studied this comprehensive report, and we note that at the end there's almost 49 items where the Portfolio Committee is exercising oversight. And so there are massive challenges in this department, including the service delivery, including corruption. However, what we do support is the committee's recommendation that when one deals with the Beitbridge border fence, the committee makes it very clear that the Minister of Public Works must ensure that all officials that were found to have acted in an illegal manner must be held accountable, and that the SIU report must also be fully implemented. Secondly, we have a concern about the 52 million reduction in the IEC's budget. This, in a pre-election year, is a matter of great concern, and we know that public awareness programs will be impacted. It is also significant that as of 28 August, 198,000 death certificates had been issued for the lockdown period. At that time, there were about 11,000 COVID-related deaths, and every death is tragic, but it is very clear that there are tens of thousands of people dying of curable and treatable diseases, such as HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and chronic heart diseases. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP implores that we also remember all those other people that have also died at this time. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM, ATM, good, NFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party supports the report of the Department of Home Affairs tabled here today. Allow me to start off first of all by saying, the minister of this particular department inherited a department that was already in grave trouble a long time ago. And the problems in the department continue. I mean, if you talk to one Belinda Botwell, she will tell you the challenges that she faced at the Home Affairs in Umgeni Road and the poor treatment that she received there, including by the supervisor. And thanks to one Zandile at Lamini who came to the rescue to assist her. But this appears to be the norm in most branches of Home Affairs as a result, of course, of lack of commitment and passion by employees, and very importantly also the failing integrated IT system at various departments. But I would like the Minister to one day join me, and I would show the Minister how easy it is to travel from Cape Town to Zimbabwe with no documentation at all, with hardly any money in your pocket, and with no problems whatsoever. And I want to encourage the Minister to join me, and I'll show him exactly how our borders really are. Take the issue of Budgetary. I'd like this department at some stage to be able to tell us through a thorough investigation how this Budgetary left South Africa, through which border control did he leave South Africa, and where are really the problems, and who obviously colluded with Budgetary to allow him to escape this country. The National Freedom Party is very reluctantly supporting this because we believe that the Minister, who's been very committed under the Department of Health, will do what is necessary to bring this department in order. But one of the last things I want to request from the Minister is to ensure that his officials in all branches of Home Affairs have an open book
you
policy.
added an example, your time has expired.
Thank you.
AIC,
National Freedom Party.
Cope, Al-Jamaa,
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have a minister that is very passionate to fix things and is always available. A chairman of a portfolio committee that crosses the T's and dots the I's, and we've heard a portfolio committee that is very vigilant to turn things around. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are going to move to mechanical voting hopefully in the future, and voter education is very important. So we'll amend the fact that that the budget has been cut. Also, it is important that voter education improves and increases so that people don't go to the streets but use the ballot box. Al-Jamaa supports the report. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker and members of the House. The African National Congress rises in support of the Budget Review and Recommendations report of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs for the financial year 2020-2021. The Department of Home Affairs is responsible for the efficient determination and safeguarding of the identity and status of citizens and regulations of migration to ensure security as well as to fulfill South Africa's international obligations. Over the financial year, the whole world was ravaged by the coronavirus pandemic. This brought the economy to its knees, and the Department of Home Affairs was not spared from the negative impact. Be that as it may, we have confidence in the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan as tabled by the President. We support our government's effort to building our economy, rehabilitating our public finance, and recovering from the devastation brought by the COVID-19. One of the department's strategic priorities is to establish the Border Management Authority. The main challenge of the establishment has been the delay to pass the legislation. However, with the passing and the President's assent to the Border Management Authority Act, we look forward to seeing the incremental implementation of the BMA. The ANC 52nd National Conference resolved to establish the BMA. The BMA is a critical tool for securing our borders, which are porous. We will be closely monitoring the implementation thereof. The BMA must be appropriately funded in order to ensure effective security of our borders. We commend the department in providing essential services during the lockdown. This shows commitment to the Budgetary principles. We encourage the department officials not to relax their efforts in serving South Africans. We reaffirm our commitment to the international law instruments and policies on migration of the country. All those who come to our country must know that they are subject to constitution and the law of the land.
Your time has expired. When we say
the ANC supports the BRRR.
Members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Any objections?
Deputy Speaker, can you please note the objection of the EFF?
That will be noted, yes.
The objection of the DA, please, Deputy Speaker.
DA?
Objection of
ACDP, thank you.
Objection of the EFF plus.
And the IFP, Deputy Speaker, please.
And the UDM, Deputy Speaker.
UDM, yes, okay.
And the IFP.
Those objections noted, the report will be agreed to. The Secretary will read the 4th to 6th orders.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration on Statistics South Africa. Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration on Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and Brand South Africa. And consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration on Department of Public Service and Administration, Public Service Commission, National School of Government, and Center for Public Service Innovation.
Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I hereby move that we adopt.
Still deputy.
Come again.
Deputy.
Detain him now. Detain him. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Lechisa Tsinoji.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kitsisinya hore kombo yena ya ditlaleho tsena tse tharo re ya moela intse ile kombo ile jwalo. Thank you.
Don't worry, we are about to go to lunch. Start talking about combo. Lunch is not far away. The DA declarations, yes. The DA, Chief Whip.
Honourable Speaker, it's the Honourable Schreiber and he's online. I believe that he's busy connecting.
If he struggles, you are going to have to intervene.
Deputy Speaker, there does seem to be a problem. I wonder if you could come back to the DA after you've done your next speaker.
Okay. All right, let's do that. EFF. EFF.
Deputy Speaker, it seems there seems to be a connection problem. I will try to locate the member.
They're not connected. They can't connect.
FF plus.
IFP, Deputy Speaker, first.
Oh, IFP, yes.
Deputy Speaker, the IFP has considered the 3 BRRRs reports of the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. In relation to the Budgetary Review and Recommendation Report on Statistics South Africa, the IFP from the outset wishes to emphasize that it acknowledges the high-quality information Stats South Africa produces and its important role in ensuring that this information is correctly captured. The role of this institution is critical as the data it produces informs national and provincial policy and is an important means to measure the fulfillment of government objectives. It is therefore highly concerning that key management and critical posts have been vacant since October 2016 as a result of budget cuts. The IFP strongly agrees with the committee's recommendation that the Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation and the Minister of Finance should urgently resolve the budget shortfall. The IFP also supports the committee's decision to invite National Treasury and the two ministers to urgently address this issue. On the issue of the report of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation and Brand South Africa, the IFP supports the Portfolio Committee's recommendations. Here, the IFP is also concerned about the increasing vacancy rate at Brand South Africa and strongly supports the committee's recommendation that Brand South Africa must prioritize the filling of critically funded positions. Lastly, in relation to the BRRR on Public Service Commission and the National School of Government, and the Center for Public Service and Innovation, the IFP agrees with the committee's recommendations. The IFP in specific wishes to emphasize the recommendation that the Public Service Commission should investigate reasons why disciplinary cases in the public service are drawn out without being resolved. These reasons need to be properly investigated. The PSC has a critical constitutional role to play, and we wish to reiterate in terms of Section 196 of the Constitution that it has the power to investigate public administration. The IFP hopes that they would do that and will support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the DA online?
I believe so, Deputy Speaker.
DA?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, apologies, I'm having some technical challenges. Honorable Deputy Speaker, just last week when we discussed the preliminary BRRR reports, I informed this House that there appears to be a concerted effort by members, ANC members of this committee, to actually sabotage the work of the Public Service Commission and other entities within this department. When looking at this report, I'm afraid to say that this issue is only getting worse, because contained in this report is a statement from the ANC members of the committee that the government must actually renege on its undertaking earlier this year to cut the public service wage bill. That's right, Deputy Speaker. The ANC members of this committee has taken on Finance Minister Tito Mboweni. They have directly challenged him, and this report now calls for the government to actually provide back pay of salary increases totaling 37.8 billion rand for the last financial year. This is in complete contrast to what we've heard from the Finance Minister thus far, as well as from Minister Senzo Mchunu. When I pushed the ANC members of the committee on this, they simply responded by saying it would be an embarrassment to the government if they lost a court case, and that people from the unions and the union background understand that you cannot fail to pay salary increases. Deputy Speaker, the DA rejects this report, and we reject this latest attempt to sabotage any final efforts to stop and prevent South Africa from falling over the fiscal cliff. We will keep a close eye on this matter, and we implore the state to cut the public service wage bill in a way that protects the wages of frontline service delivery workers while making sure that millionaire managers are reduced so that we can save South Africa from the fiscal cliff. Thank you.
Thank you. EFF? EFF? Okay, FF plus?
No declaration, Deputy Speaker.
ACDP?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP fully appreciates the need to contain the spiraling public sector wage bill, and this has been highlighted by the Minister of Finances, by National Treasury, as a serious risk to the fiscal outlook. And the matter of the implementation of the third year of the wage agreement is, of course, subject to a court process. Now, we know as well that public servants, such as doctors, such as nurses, are at the front line, and they need to be protected. But they do need to be protected from those middle management millionaires. And so, at the same time, whilst we appreciate the dilemma that public servants are faced with, let's also look at the private sector, where 2.2 million people have lost their jobs. Many have taken a reduction in salary. And yes, the labor unions say, why should we take the brunt when there's so much corruption? The ACDP agrees with that. But given the constraints that we are faced with, we would urge that this portfolio committee, as well as government, looks to reach a sustainable, developmental, cross-sector, public sector wage bill going forward that will include state-owned enterprises and, of course, us as public office bearers. I thank you.
ACDP, UDM. ATM. Good. NFP.
Deputy Speaker, we are ready as the EFF, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Honorable Member of the EFF.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Economic Freedom Fighters reject all three budget reviews and recommendation reports from the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. And we do so for the following reasons. As the EFF, we reject the freezing of public servants' salaries and view this as nothing but an austerity-driven agenda that is misguided.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Public servants are one of the major consumers in our economy. When you freeze more than 300 billion of their salaries over the medium term, you are essentially reducing and disposable income for consumers to spend in goods and services market. It is these kinds of reckless policies adopted without scientific evidence that will push our economy into further depression. Workers will do better to know that they are not being sold out to slaughter. They continue to support the ruling party during these elections is reckless and amounts to failure to take responsibility. We have said time and time again, the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation is an unnecessary department that we will have to do away and abolish. We don't need a minister without a portfolio who just is a glorified spokesperson of the presidency. Lastly, Deputy Speaker, the continued attack on Stetsa's budget is a deliberate attempt to collapse the institution. And at a time like this, when we need to look into alternative policies informed by credible statistics, we should all form upon the reduction of Stetsa's budget. We do reject the report. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
Deputy Speaker, I think my colleague is having a problem there to get in.
Go ahead, Honorable Member. Take over.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party supports the report of Public Service and Administration tabled here. First of all, let me say this, Deputy Speaker, that Statistics South Africa is one of the most critical institutions in South Africa. You know, unless they are able to work in a satisfactory manner and provide us with the necessary data, it will be very difficult for us to plan for the future. And I think that cutting budgets, particularly for an organization like Stats South Africa, does not do justice. However, Stats South Africa itself has serious challenges in terms of the high vacancy rate and things which impacts on their performance. The other issue is, of course, we talk about the public service wage bill. Now, the first thing is this: we must understand and accept that we cannot blame public sector employees for the weaknesses and challenges in corruption and high levels of maladministration that we have in the country. I think what we need to do, in fact, is, and I think the stats clearly show that the numbers of people employed in the public sector is fine. The problem is that the high exorbitant salary scales in which we pay them. And I think we need to make sure that we get a better performance from them. That I think what is very important is this, that we do more with less. But I think the 630 billion rand that we spend annually on public is not sustainable in the long term. What we must understand that it's government's responsibility to create a conducive environment to create jobs, not to create it in the public sector, but in the private sector. The National Freedom Party will support the report tabled here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. AIC. Cope. Al-Jamaa.
Al-Jamaa supports all three budget reviews. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC pleads with the House to support the report. Statistics South Africa is bestowed with the responsibility of producing credible statistics using internationally recognized standards, methods, and employ the best statisticians in the country. Statistics influences government to make better informed decisions when it comes to policy making. And government and the private sector and the academic institution rely on statistics produced by Stats SA to inform their work and research. The DPME has a fundamental role to play in monitoring and evaluation government departments. The department is responsible to put effective monitoring and evaluation framework in place that will enable department to measure their impact and shortfalls. We urge the department to work closely with the Department of Public Service and Administration in developing a strategy for the establishment of the administration heads as envisaged by the National Development Plan to manage career incidents of the heads of departments and establish the political administrative interface. As the ANC, we urge the Public Service and Administration to urgently establish the Office of Standards and Compliance and further extend its scope to conduct lifestyle audits for government employees to curb and avoid public servants conducting business with the state. As the ANC, we support all the three reports. Before my time expires, let me address what the DA has raised.
Honorable Member, I'm afraid your time is gone already.
Thank you.
I regret, yes. Honorable Members, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections?
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the DA.
We'll note the objection of the DA.
And
of
the
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the EFF.
FF plus. Okay, we'll note those objections. The report is agreed to. The 7th and 8th orders. Secretary will read there.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on South African Police Services performance for 2019-2020 financial year, and consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority performance for 2019-2020 financial year.
Chief Whip.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move that a report be adopted. Thank you.
Honorable members, there be declarations. The DA.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, the South African Police Service is the second largest department in South Africa, with a total adjusted budget allocated of 96.8 billion for the 2019-20 financial year. The department's performance is therefore very important for the safety of all South Africans and to support investment initiatives. Unfortunately, the department underperformed. Total performance declined in 2019-20 financial year, both in terms of financial and service delivery performance. The SAPS is a department in crisis, often unable to achieve its goals. Detective services and specifically forensic services sub-program came under severe criticism for underperformance driven by corruption and supply management issues. The DNA case backlog hovers around 230,000 cases. This cripples the National Prosecuting Authority's ability to charge and successfully prosecute suspects in serious gender-based and other violent crimes. Visible policing is key in any crime prevention strategy, and underspending in this environment spells out the department's laissez-faire approach. Recruiting and training programs are stranded, and it is unknown when the process will be kicked in again. Farm attacks and murders are still going on as usual, and Minister Kele and his department seems to be unable to bring it under control. He is apparently too busy with operational issues, preventing him from fulfilling his ministerial responsibilities. The minister must indicate what he intends to do about the threats made by Mr. Julius Malema against the police and their families. Chairperson,
Honourable Member, unfortunately your time is gone.
Thank you.
EFF. EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the EFF rejects the budgetary review and recommendation reports for both the South African Police Service as well as the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority. We do this on the basis that the SAPS is increasingly becoming a spectator in the game they should be dictating. The increasing rates of rape and other crimes against women and children seem to have overwhelmed SAPS, and there is no plan in place to put an end to this practice. Our townships have become jungles where the armed and the most violent rule, more often with collaboration from criminal elements which are now dominating SAPS to the disadvantage of the innocent citizens. South Africans are living in terror and fear for their lives every day, and they do so knowing that they will find no comfort in the police. This can be linked directly to the almost uncontrollable mushrooming of private security companies in the country, whose growth threatens the very nature of our democracy. There are currently over 9,500 private security companies in this country, and almost 500,000 active private security guards, as well as over 1.5 million trained but inactive private security guards. They are better armed than the South African police and the army. These private securities can overrun the country at any given time. The role played by the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority is ensuring that these companies are regulated in almost negligible. The private security industry is a law on itself.
Honourable Member, your time is gone.
Thank you, we reject the report.
IFP.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The South African Police Service is not currently performing equal to its mandated task of ensuring that the people of South Africa feel and are safe. The fact is that our police are increasingly becoming less effective and efficient in the delivery of their service mandate. The policing priorities, as listed in the National Development Plan, must receive greater focus if our police service are going to restore public faith, trust, and confidence in the law enforcement. Transformation of the SAPS and effective law enforcement in the crimes of gender-based violence and crimes committed against women and children must remain policy priorities. The SAPS Rejuvenation Program, which seeks to recruit over 3,000 new police officers of the MTF period, must ensure that the new trainees are trained to the highest standard in order to ensure effective policing and greater public trust. Qualified audits and supply chain management irregularities cannot continue, and stricter financial and budgetary controls must be implemented. Those found guilty of misconduct must be subject to the necessary disciplinary or criminal proceedings. In terms of the PRRR on the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, must be commended on receiving a clean audit during the 2019-2020 financial year. Unfortunately, it fell short on time frames as regards to the appointment of new council members, and this must be addressed as a matter of urgency. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we agree that the authority should additionally be doing more to empower small security businesses to develop, whilst at the same time ensuring an effective regulated industry. The IFP supports both budgetary reviews and recommendation reports. I thank you.
Thank you. FF plus.
Achtbare adjunct Speaker, firstly I want to start by saying that the BRRR report is actually making certain recommendations, and the Freedom Front Plus support those recommendations, because each and one of those recommendations are good recommendations to enhance the better functioning of the police services. But Chair, I also want to say that yes, we see the reports, we know there are many problems. But I want to say that one of the main problems is actually the fact that we have too many criminals within the police services. More than 400 members of the police services who is actually accused of some or other form of criminality. And that is unfair towards the hard-working, dedicated men and women in the police services trying to protect the people of South Africa. Having said that, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I also want to say the fight against crime is not only the police, it's a criminal justice system. How is it possible that we must read that a certain Lungisa, who actually got 2 years for assault, is now out on bail from the correctional services after 2 months? How is it possible? You cannot ought to have that. Die ander probleem is dat u gaan vanmiddag in hierdie debat hoor dat
Honourable member, yes, honourable member.
Chair, with due respect, the matter of Comrade Lungisa is not part of this PR.
That's not a point of order, Honourable Chief Whip, sorry. Take your seat. That's not a point of order. Go ahead.
Dankie, adjunct Speaker. U gaan vanmiddag hoor die minister van vervoer gaan kom praat oor die vakansietydperk van moenie drink en bestuur nie. Die feit van die saak is, die speerders kan nie hulle werk afhandel nie, want die toksikologiese verslag is selfs 10 jaar agter. En dit is nie die polisie nie, dis die Departement van Gesondheid wat nie daardie verslag produseer nie. Dit is die probleem. Ek dank u.
Dank u. LCDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The SAPS has the second largest budget in government. However, this department, this department is underperforming and in some crucial areas retrogressing rather than progressing. In the 2019-20 financial year, the SAPS had their 4th qualified audit in a row. Since the 2016-17 financial year, the Auditor General has been complaining about the uncertainties and irregularities in the SAPS financial records. And surprisingly, in the 2019-20 financial year, matters became even worse. Supply management policies continue to be flouted, leading to significant corruption. This has impacted service delivery, and there seems to be no consequences for the culprits. Our police, who should be the ones setting a good example for the rest of government and the country on diligence and honest financial management, are the worst culprits. The Auditor General has not been able to verify some of the performance indicators claimed by the department. These include average national reaction time indicators and the number of identifiable stolen or lost SAPS firearms recovered. Is this because of poor record keeping or deliberate manipulation of the statistics? Either way, the matter is very concerning because victims who are kept waiting after calling 10111 can easily end up dead, injured, or raped. Furthermore, the SAPS missed 48 of its 121 performance targets with an achievement rate of only 63.3%. The Protection and Security Service Program, on the other hand, achieved 100% of its performance targets. This proving that
UDM. ATM, good. NFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party supports the BRR report of the department tabled here today. Let me start off by saying, indeed, CIRA has got its own challenges and it needs to improve on its capacity to collect revenue because technically it is insolvent. The South African Police Services has its own problems and challenges. I mean, corruption is underreported or understated in the department, but very importantly, budget cuts does not help the department. Remember, with the high unemployment rate, the job losses, and the business closures, South African crime is expected to be on the rise. And very importantly, the level of trust in the community has on the South African Police Services is at an all-time low. So unless, that improves, and that's why the National Freedom Party has suggested repeatedly that we need to include or introduce policing in grade 10 in schools, so those with a passion and wanting to serve in the South African Police Services could be enrolled and given the necessary training after they finish grade 12 to become professional, to professionalize the entire South African Police Services. But also we think it is important that the Department of South African Police Services together with, like my colleagues have said, the Department of Justice, and I agree, Social Development, Home Affairs, should all work together in dealing with the issues of crime in South Africa. We cannot certainly expect South African Police Services to be able to deal with the crime at the level it is currently as a result of other departments not performing optimally. We need a holistic approach to dealing with the issues of crime in South Africa. The National Freedom Party supports the report tabled here. Thank you.
Thank you. AIC. Cope. Al-Jama.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we've lost the war to stop gender-based violence, which makes South Africa possibly a failed state, because we can't stop gender-based violence, and that the South African police have got their budget is the second highest budget, then it's a serious problem. Honorable Deputy Speaker, that when we got our democracy, many of the cadres were integrated into the defense force. Not enough of them were integrated in the police force. And because we now actually need, if I focus on gender-based violence and personal safety, we actually need a standby force in every village, in every town, in every city to assist the police so that we can address gender-based violence and personal safety. Let us not fool ourselves. The police just don't have the capacity, they don't make the cut, and we have to think of a standby force like the Speaker wants, a standby force for Africa. We need to have standby forces using our cadres all over the country to address the serious problem. Al-Jama supports the budget. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The ANC rises to support the BRRR of the Portfolio Committee on Police, who have examined the financial and performance information for the South African Police Service for the 2019-20 financial year. The ANC knows that we have a long way to go with increased violent crime. We have to support the good police officers who want to help the community to fight crime, and the fight against gender-based violence and femicide is a priority which we cannot ignore. We are disappointed that the SAPS has regressed in the financial reporting, as the Auditor General for the 4th year in a row found that the SAPS has a qualified audit with findings. We cannot accept that the SAPS, whose budget is over 96 billion and who has problems with corruption, cannot manage its financial administration with proper record keeping. We have asked that this change through the many recommendations we have supported. We look forward to processing the SAPS amendment bill when it comes to Parliament. In the same breath, Deputy Speaker, the ANC also supports the BRRR on the Private Security Regulatory Authority. The CIRA is a Schedule 3 public entity, and we are proud that it is leading the way when it comes to charting a new course for the private security industry. We welcome the clean audit outcome of the CIRA, and we note that they have to work hard to ensure that security companies do not exploit security officers and follow the regulations. The security industry has about 2.5 million security officers on their database, of which 548,000 remain active. The ANC congratulates the CIRA for attaining a clean audit for the 2019-20 financial year and look forward to the same next year.
Thank you very much.
The ANC supports the BRRR of the Portfolio Committee.
Your time has expired.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The motion, honourable members, is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections?
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the DA.
You'll note the objection of the DA.
And the ACDP, thank you.
ACDP.
Deputy Speaker, note the objection of the EFF.
EFF, we will do that. Okay, we'll note those objections. The report is agreed to. The 9th and 10th orders, the Secretary will read them.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on Independent Police Investigation Directorate, performance for 2019-2020 financial year. Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on Civilian Secretariat for Police Services, performance for 2019-2020 financial year.
Now recognize the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House adopts both reports. Thank you.
Okay. Now that we have requests for a declaration, the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, derives its mandate from the IPID Act, Act 1 of 2011. The urgent review of this Act is crucial for the effective performance of this Directorate. Thus, together with the Minister's failure to appoint a new permanent Director within the prescribed time frame had serious consequences for the success of this essential weapon in the state's arsenal to combat crime in police ranks. The Portfolio Committee, in the meantime, managed to facilitate the appointment of Ms. Laseng as IPID Executive Director. We hope that this will usher in much needed stability in this environment. The department's overall performance declined during the 2019-20 financial year, achieving only 72% on predetermined targets. IPID experienced serious underperformance in the investigation of crime against members of the South African Police Service, and urgent intervention in this area is needed. Capacity constraints have been raised continuously to explain underperformance and underspending, but they still only fill 360 posts of approved 428 posts. IPID only completed 40% of cases referred to them, and their success rate with prosecutions and convictions is even more concerning. The National Prosecuting Authority declined to prosecute in some cases due to the quality of investigations. The Civilian Secretariat for Police Service focused on outputs that do not measure the outcomes and impact on crime prevention or police conduct. Chairperson, we as a TA...
Your time has expired, Honourable Member. EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the EFF rejects the BRRRs on both the IPID and the Civilian Secretariat on Police. IPID has in essence failed to deal with the proliferation of criminal conduct within the police service and the sheer disregard for the rights of citizens, particularly black citizens in this country, who are abused, beaten up, and even killed by police on a regular basis. We have often seen how police treat black people who are involved in protests as compared to the manner they treat white people. The SAPS is still at the core, a colonial and apartheid force meant to browbeat black people into the lanes that the oppressive neo-colonial system has preordained for black people. The institution may be led by black people and even has a black minister, but at the core, it is a force against the black people. The black leaders are merely tokens who have no philosophical grounding to understand how the conduct of police reinforce colonial stereotypes. The IPT is supposed to be working hard in uprooting this disrespect for black lives at the SAPS, but they've spectacularly failed to rein in the police. The same can be said for the Civilian Secretariat for Police, which was meant to provide civilian oversight over the police service. This is just an entity that is used to channel resources of the state to looters associated with the ruling party and has done very little to fulfill its mandate. We therefore reject this report. Thank you.
Thank you. AFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The budget review and recommendation report regarding the Civilian Secretariat and IPID has been disappointing year on year. What has emerged from these two reports is the common theme that the Department of Police is severely undercapacitated and removed from the challenges South Africa faces. The lack of human capital in IPID forces the delay of investigation, not only in terms of its outcomes and prosecution, but also getting to the cases. The committee even noted that IPID cannot ensure accountability over the police as they are unable to attend to cases in the required time frame. One such prime example is Siyasanga Gijana from Philip, who has been waiting over a year for IPID to investigate the matter after police shot her in the eye while she was merely fetching water. IPID needs to urgently reform its mismanagement in order to respond to and investigate civil claims meted against the department. According to the Civilian Secretariat, civil claims have increased by a massive 500 million at the expense of the taxpayers. This increase is not a once-off thing, but is one that builds year on year. This takes away vital monies from the department in addressing our most deep social ills. The Civilian Secretariat claims that GPV and FCS units lack human resource. Clearly, the money wasted by not ensuring proper police compliance by this entity could be diverted to strengthening the fight against GPV. The IFP supports both budgets.
Thank you. FF Plus.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I want to say again, the recommendations in the report is acceptable to the Freedom Front Plus, and we support those recommendations. However, I want to say that when it comes to IPID, it is a very important instrument for the public where they can come forward with their complaints against the police. In other words, that is the instrument to police the police. Therefore, there must be trust created by IPID when it comes to the public. As 'n mens kyk na siviele eise wat ingestel is teen die polisie, het die minister in antwoord op 'n geskrewe vraag van my gesê dat net in die vorige finansiële jaar is meer as 500 miljoen rand uitbetaal aan siviele eise, reeds uitbetaal. En meeste daarvan was weens onregmatige arrestasies. Dit is 'n baie duidelike teken en bewys dat daar 'n groot gebrek is as dit kom by die opleiding van die polisielede wat hulle nie behoorlik kan onderskei wanneer mag 'n persoon gearresteer word of nie gearresteer word nie. Maar dit is waar Oopot dan die belangrike rol speel om dan te kan sorg dat reg en geregtigheid kan skied. Die agbare minister is nog 'n antwoord verskuldig aan die komitee omdat hy buite die wet opgetree het met die aanwysing van die direkteur van Oopot. Die minister moet 'n voorbeeld stel. And therefore it is unacceptable that the minister can move out of the boundaries of the legal act to appoint the director. He must set an example and it is not acceptable. I thank you.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. With a final appropriation of more than 336 million rands, 352 staff members, a national office, and only 4 satellite offices, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is a small organization with a comparatively small budget, yet it has a huge job to do. IPID is charged with the oversight responsibility over the South African police services and municipal police services. IPID discharges its mandate by conducting independent and impartial investigations of the identified criminal offences allegedly committed by the SAPS and the MPS members. Subsequent to the investigation, they make appropriate recommendations for justice. IPID is to be congratulated on its unqualified audit opinion for the 2019-20 financial year, as well as its establishment of a financial misconduct committee and the payment of checklists it has developed and implemented to keep its supply chain clean of corruption. Sadly, though, the report on Program 2, Investigation and Information Management, indicates that IPID is forced by limited funds to focus on the most serious cases of corruption, death in police custody, death as a result of police action, rape by police officers, and rape while in police custody. IPID investigators, however, were able to attend only to 69% of crime scenes within 24 hours and only 70% of postmortems nationally in the 2019-20 financial year. Unless the budget and staff of IPID are increased significantly, they are being set up for failure. The misconduct of our SAPS and MPS members requires investigations of far more than just the high priority cases that are reported to IPID. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. On the dot. UDM? ATM? Good. NFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party supports the report of both IPID and the CSPS table here today. Now, let me start off, Honorable Deputy Speaker, by saying that the Civilian Secretariat for Police Services need to do more to boost or bolster the confidence between the people on the ground and the South African police services, and also ensure that there's a conducive environment at police station, particularly when victims of gender-based violence and other victims have to go out there to report cases and things like that, and which appears to be a serious problem at this point in time. But I think what is very clear is that IPID is overstretched with the increase of number of cases of brutality, corruption, and criminality by police officers reported there, with the limited revenue that they do have. Of course, the committee had actually also picked up problems in terms of the acquiring of PPEs where I think sanitizers were paid at 5 liters, were 400 and some odd, and another company 1,950 rand, and we are still waiting for that information for them to provide details of this particular company. But I think what is also very, very important is just to note that, with the limited capacity that IPID has, and with the influx of cases that are being reported, it is very, very difficult for IPID to be able to do justice. The National Freedom Party, however, welcomes the amendment to the IPID Act, but it must include, right now it excludes law enforcement from cities and things like that. So I think amending this amendment, of course, that is coming forward, which will now include all Metro Police law enforcement and things which IPID will be able to investigate, must be welcome. We welcome the unqualified report that the IPID has had in the last financial year, and the National Freedom Party supports the BRR report tabled here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. AIC. Cope. Al-Jama.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, if an honorable member of this House and his party feels that the South African police is a colonial police force, it's important that we change this perception, and that IPID needs to play a very serious educational role in this regard. Station commanders, it must be high on their priority list to assist IPID. And in our police schools, this needs to be high on the curriculum, because we cannot move forward when there's a perception that black lives don't matter. We are very grateful for the work that IPID does with limited resources, and Al-Jama supports the budget.
Thank you, Honourable Member. ANC.
Thank you, the Deputy Speaker. The African National Congress rises to support the budget review and recommendation report of police for 2019 and 20. With regard to IPID, the IPID received an unqualified audit opinion with material findings in compliance with the legislation. We urge the IPID to turn around their operations and fill all outstanding vacancies in order to complete all outstanding investigations. The country needs assurance that the watchdog must have the necessary resources to do the work. We welcome the appointment of the Executive Director, which is Ms. Jennifer Nkatleng. She's a strong woman, and we know that she'll do the right work. And we know that she'll be the right person to drive the ship. We welcome the decision to work closely with the NPA to finalize cases which is closed, and the plan to bring more skills on board in terms of investigations or to find evidence before the NPA. The ANC also welcomed the decision that all cases that were refused prosecution by the ANC will be reopened. With regard to the Civil Secretariat, Police, Indetech is the technical advisor to the Minister of Police.
Honorable Chabaku, please, man, switch off your mic. Sorry, okay. Honorable Member. Switch off your mic, Honorable Member. Go ahead, ma'am.
The Civilian Secretariat for Police is the technical advisor to the Minister of Police and plays a big role in policy development for the policing as well as oversight over the policing. The department received an unqualified audit opinion with no findings on performance, but had a matter of emphasis on the material underspending recorded as the year end, as well as the material findings in terms of internal control deficiency. We welcome the decision of the Civilian Secretariat has shown a lot of progress in respect to legislation program. We look forward to SEP's amendment bill and the IPID amendment bill being tabled in Parliament. The ANC support and calls by the Committee for the Surveillance Secretariat to become more involved research evaluation on SEP's training on gender-based violence as well as the ANC supports the report.
Thank you. Honorable members, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The Secretary...
Deputy Speaker, my device was giving me a problem. Can you please note the objection of the EFF?
Okay, we'll do that. We'll note your objection. Okay. The Secretary will read the 11th order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on performance of Department of Basic Education.
I recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip.
Deputy Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move that this report be adopted by the House. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, now that the Chief Whip has given us direction, the DA wants to declare. Let's hear the DA. Honorable Member, connect. We'll come back to the Honorable Member. The EFF. EFF.
They also can't connect.
IFP. Take over, Honorable
Deputy. Okay, it's Honorable Slangwa. Good.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We are tasked with safeguarding the development and delivery of quality public education to all South Africans. As learners and teachers weather the devastation and setbacks that have come because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the success of the public education sector is more necessary than ever. We need to ensure that learners are equipped with skills and knowledge that will enable them to provide groundbreaking discoveries and innovative technology to fight against global pandemics. Honorable members, we have noted that this year has posed daunting challenges in the development of basic education. Resultantly, there are targets that the department could not reach. It is concerning that the department did not include all irregular expenditure in financial statements. This is mandatory according to the PFMA. Failing the department's behalf to install adequate internal control mechanisms has led to irregular expenditure of 695 million and millions more wasted in the procurement of COVID-19 related goods and services. The department needs to ensure that internal monitoring and financial control measures are strengthened. Furthermore, the department needs to appear before the committee to indicate how they intend to do so. Deputy Speaker, the well-being and emotional health of our learners and teachers should be prioritized in the creation of an inclusive public education sector. Greater fiscal and political commitment is needed for learners with special needs and those residing in rural areas. Similarly, for the South African Council for Educators to continue fulfilling its mandate of enhancing the status of the teaching profession and defending the safety of learners by undertaking investigations into teacher misconduct, more resources need to be assigned to it. Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, the rate of infrastructure delivery and challenges in the existing model for service delivery and delivery is concerning. The current model distorts incentives, weakens accountability change, and encourages fiscal misappropriation. The backlog in classrooms, sanitation, and library facilities rob our learners of their dignity. And as a matter of urgency, we must take it upon ourselves to consider if provincial departments are
I'm afraid you miscalculated, Honourable Member. Your term is expired.
Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Marchese is online now. She's managed to connect.
Okay, Honourable DA, Honourable Matle. The member appears to be still having problem. Let's proceed. FF plus.
Deputy Speaker, the EFF is ready.
Deputy Speaker, I'm ready.
Who's that?
Deputy Speaker, it's Namsa Machesi.
Okay, go ahead, Honorable Machesi from the DA. And then the EFF.
Thank you for your understanding, Deputy Speaker. Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance does not support the BRRR of the Department of Basic Education. Our concerns is that despite the department's success on the management of the return of learners to school during COVID crisis, it is worth noting that we have seen the regress in the performance of the department, specifically in its inability to spend its allocated budget on infrastructure optimally. We are also concerned about the reduced uptake of subjects like mathematics and science, and no effort from the department to encourage learners to take these subjects, as we all know that they have a potential to assist learners to really participate in our economy. Programs like Second Chance programs, despite a satisfactory pass rate, they also lack on these subjects like mathematics and science, resulting in a pass rate on these subjects averaging around 2%. Time and time again, Speaker, we have continued to raise the issue of learner dropout. As we speak, over 100,000 learners have dropped out of the system due to COVID-19. And with no clear plan from the department how to deal with this issue, we might actually see an incremental figure on dropouts. And we can ultimately not blame COVID-19, as this issue has been continuous, and as a Democratic Alliance, we have raised this for a number of years. Speaker, there's also a fundamental issue where 30% of the grade 1 learners fail the grade, and this is attributed to the weak foundation phase. The idea that learners can just be progressed in the foundation phase cannot continue beyond the COVID phase. We need to regain the curriculum in 2020 so that we can be able to advance our learners and have them to be supported to the next grade, but not only to be progressed. As the committee noted, the recurring non-effective use of conditional grant, like the ACD and EIG grant, those has been delayed because of the lack of
Honourable Member,
and underspending in the infrastructure.
Honourable Member,
thank you,
your time is expired. You must stop when I say you stop, literally mid-sentence. There will be no exception here. No. EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, we are coming to an end of the year that have been very definitive into exposure of the weaknesses of the basic education system. The corona pandemic has shown us that any pretenses we may have had about the quality of our basic education system, about the quality of the education our children receive, and about whether or not leaders in the sector are fit for purpose. Townships and rural schools servicing exclusively Black learners did not and still do not have access to basic material that would allow them to keep the learning process happening during the lockdown. The consequences of this is that millions of Black children have had their learning compromised while their white counterparts were studying in the comfort of their homes via online education because their schools and their parents had the computers, tablets, and the data to keep them connected and learning. We have constantly argued here, even before COVID, that there is absolutely no reason for the state not to provide each learner with a tablet in which they can access all learning material. This will enable learning in Mpindweni, in Limbode, in Eastern Cape, to have their learning material without having to walk to a school for 4 hours every morning and 4 hours every afternoon. Our rural schools still do not have the basic infrastructural requirements that they should have, according to the department's own standards. We are failing the future of our children, and we should not support this report and lack of vision by the department. We reject this report. Thank you.
Thank you. On the dot, FF Plus.
Young Speaker, die Vryheidsfront Plus ondersteun nie hierdie verslag nie. Basiese onderwys is sedert 1994 'n lopende krisis. Die hervormings wat professor Sibusiso Bengo as die eerste minister van onderwys na 1994 gemaak het en die rampspoedige kurrikulum 2005 weergawe van uitkomsgebaseerde onderrig wat hy probeer toepas het. En alles wat gewerk het in Suid-Afrikaanse onderwys omvergegooi en dit het gelyk soos die studente uit 'n koshuis wat die eerste keer die kans gekry het om die land te regeer. Sedertdien het opeenvolgende ministers van onderwys onsuksesvol probeer om hierdie lopende krisis op te hef. En as 'n mens daaraan dink dat die departement van basiese onderwys nie verantwoordelik is vir die aanbieding van skool nie, is daar nogal verbasend baie teikens wat hulle nie gehad het. Een van die belangrikste is die bouprogram van skole wat besig is om onnodige druk te plaas op minderheidstale vir al Afrikaanse skole omdat die gebrek aan skoolsitplekke aan hierdie skole toegeskryf. Aan die positiewe kant kan 'n mens sê dat COVID die selfstandigheid van skole verhoog het en dat skoolgemeenskappe baie meer besluite self kan neem. Alles in ag genome is dit egter nog nie moontlik om hierdie verslag te aanvaar. Baie dankie.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP appreciates that this has been a very, very difficult year given the COVID-19 hard lockdown and that schools and educators have had a very tough time in the education of our learners. Many, many schools have had online teaching, but of course many have not. So we from the ACDP side would like to express our deep gratitude to all those educators that have gone beyond the call of duty during this hard lockdown time. Of course, we are concerned of many of the challenges facing the department. Many of the schools still are sitting with pit toilets. This is unacceptable. We are also concerned about the reduction in certain of the conditional provincial grants, which we find money being reprioritized now for the SAA. And lastly, of course, the ACDP has taken a very strong stance on opposing comprehensive sexuality education this year. And I would urge every member of parliament to look at what that curriculum entails and whether it is in the best interests of our children. The ACDP will not support this report. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM, ATM, good, NFP.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I don't think my colleague is online, but anyway. I think, yeah, first of all, let me pay tribute, Deputy Speaker, to all those educators and learners who have lost their lives during COVID-19 under very, very difficult circumstances. But let me add, Deputy Speaker, that the problem that we face in the basic education department, we have a very high dropout rate from grade 1. Secondly, we have a 60% dropout rate when they go to tertiary institutions. Okay. Then you have the number of learners that are failing. It clearly indicates that what we need is a total overhaul of the Department of Basic Education. We've done oversight in many schools, particularly in rural, and I know the minister does not agree. Maybe she should be visiting these areas and see what quality of education they get in these rural schools. And I agree with my colleague from the Eastern Cape, particularly from EFF, particularly if you go into the rural areas like the Eastern Cape, the quality is so poor that I can tell you, you are not preparing these learners for tertiary institutions and for the future. And I think that is one matter that we need to do. What the department also needs to have greater collaboration with the Department of Sports and Recreation and the Department of Health and things so that they can enhance these learners, you know, that might even be able to earn a living out of sports rather than just limiting themselves to education on the one hand. The other problem appears to be poor sanitation, poor quality of the schools, not ensuring there are enough sports facilities built close to the school or on school premises. That appears to be another. The issue of maths and science, the reduced number that are taking any interest in maths and science. And we know without maths and science, we're not going to be able to go very far today. So there are quite a host of challenges that this department is facing. While the National Freedom Party will reluctantly support this report, We're calling for this department to be totally
Honorable
overall.
Member,
So that
time
it
yourself
emphasis on
better. Your
quality.
time is gone. Your time is gone. AIC, Coke, Al-Jamaa.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, we know that over 50,000 learners did not return to school. We also know that the Department of Basic Education has put in extra measures to cope with the challenges of COVID-19, and that those who are writing their examinations, that under the circumstances, they should all do well, and we hope they will all pass the examinations. The fact that the government has redeployed over nearly 500,000 extra heads to assist schools for next year means that a special effort can be done next year to assist learners. Al-Jamaa feels that serious consideration must be given that all those who presented themselves for the examinations, irrespective of their results, should proceed to the next year. Now that is very controversial, but the mere fact that a lot has been done this year and that the extra resources next year and that we are geared up to put in extra efforts next year, this must be seriously considered, take into account the exam results, because we already lost 50,000 learners. We can't lose any more learners because of COVID. Al-Jamaa supports the budget. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. In order to realize a better life for all South Africans, our schools should have a conducive environment to enable all learners to reach their human potential. The Portfolio Committee on Basic Education has approached the Budget Review and Recommendations report with a focus on key areas which require urgent attention of the department. The Portfolio Committee resolved to focus on basic service backlog, on infrastructure expenditure to ensure social infrastructure such as classrooms, the eradication of pit latrines in our schools. The department should also ensure that robotics, coding, and technology be prioritized to prepare learners for fourth industrial revolution. The Portfolio Committee recommended the strengthening of supply chain management and internal controls to address irregular expenditure and to ensure prudent financial management. In instances of wrongdoings, the Portfolio Committee has recommended to the department to ensure that consequence management is implemented to the latter. The Department of Basic Education has continuously improved its performance of learning outcomes. We acknowledge the improvement of good corporate governance through addressing the Auditor General's recommendation. This has enabled effective department as displayed recently in its management of the coronavirus pandemic and completion of the year by grade 12s. We also appreciate the work done by the department, the support from the parents, the community members, and all the stakeholders. The African National Congress supports this report because it addresses the critical challenges affecting numerous schools despite the commendable progress. I thank you, Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the Democratic Alliance.
Of the EFF?
EFF, ACDP.
ACDP, thank you.
FF plus.
FF plus, thank you.
We know those objections. The report is agreed to. Honorable members who have spoken here today doing declaration, I know you. You have capacity to prune your remarks, to stay within the 2 minutes. Don't underestimate your capacity. Do it. I know you can do it. No, you see, you can't fight your neighbor regularly when your neighbor has to repair the fence because you insisted on going through the fence. No. So please, I plead with you. It's a beautiful thing to say it in 2 minutes. Some members have been very exemplary, on the dot. So follow them. They are good examples here. I thought I should say that just as a reminder. You know, honorable members want to be reminded regularly. The Secretary will read the 12th order.
Decision of question on report of Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on petition pertaining to role of religious community in COVID-19 crisis.
Honorable members, I wish to remind you that this matter was debated on the 19th November this year in a mini plenary, but that a decision thereon can only be taken in full plenary. This is the same for the other decisions of question the House will decide on today, similar to this. This is necessary to remind you that it has been debated. Are there any objections to this report being adopted? No objection.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honorable
Deputy Speaker, note the objection of the EFF.
The EFF objects. Okay, we know that the report is agreed to. The 13th order, the Secretary will read the 13th order.
Decision of question on report of Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on petition pertaining to lack of service delivery in Ward 52 under City of eThekwini.
Are there any objections to the adoption of the report, members?
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the EFF.
I will. The report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the 14th order.
Decision of question on report of Portfolio Committee on Transport on Oversight visit to assess state of readiness of various modes of transport and their attendant facilities in line with implementation of Level 3 regulations of COVID-19 lockdown.
Are there any objections to the report, to the adoption of the report? No objections.
Speaker.
Yes,
Deputy Speaker, the EFF rejects.
Okay, we note the objection of the EFF. The report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the 15th order.
Decision of question on report of Portfolio Committee on Communications on 2020-21 first quarter performance and expenditure report of Department of Communications and Digital Technologies.
Are there any objections to the adoption of the report?
Deputy Speaker, can you please note the objection of the EFF?
I will. The report is agreed to. Honorable members, now I'm expected to suspend proceedings and then remind members that we will continue with ministerial statement at 14 hours this afternoon. Bells will be rung to alert members to the resumption of the session as is usual. This session is adjourned. You may now have a comfort lunch break.
Suspended.